Pastor, I want to ask you about this because, you just delivered a powerful message, but it's somebody out there that's just like, man, all that sounds good, but I'm just so far away.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just too deep in sin right now.
Mm-hmm.
But if, your, testimony is incredible. I mean, you was in Rikers Island, and Tyshawn knows some of my most favorite things to watch is crime stories. Mm-hmm. So I know Rikers Island is notorious for harsh conditions, mm-hmm. notorious for violence. This is a place that, men don't make it out of.
Mm-hmm.
When you were in that place, and I'm assuming it's one of your darkest times in your life,
mm-hmm.
how does a man in that kind of position, the worst position possible, absolutely rock bottom, find some level of spiritual awakening?
Yeah, that's a powerful question, bro. Honesty and being wary of what you're going through. I think there's somebody watching right now who's in a very dark place. Maybe there's a woman watching right now who is bound up in drugs, or she's in prostitution, or she feels guilty because of an abortion. There's a brother watching right now who feels like the kind of person he is, God could never use somebody like that. There's people watching right now that feel that way, and I've been there. I still don't even feel worthy to be doing what I'm doing. I feel ill-equipped all the time, and we could talk about that in the next segment. It's very important, and listen to what I'm about to say that there's any sinful state that's stronger than the blood of Christ is to insult the cross. No one can out-sin God's grace. You could be in the lowest place in your life, blew up your marriage, walked away from God, drug addict in the street. You could be shooting up heroin right now. Somebody could be listening, like the dope fiends I used to be serving on Farmers Boulevard in Queens when I used to be selling dope in the crack house. And come to yourself in that moment and be like, God, you know what? If you exist, I surrender myself to you right here. I don't know what I need to say, but I just had enough. And I ask you to just please just deliver me from this dark place. And God is loving enough and gracious enough to hear the prayer of the person who's humble and who's honest and who's straightforward. And he's loving enough to meet somebody exactly where they are. The lie the devil tells us is that you got to clean yourself up before you come to God. And because of that, you have a lot of people who have interest in God, but they think God can never use somebody like me. And so what we do is we attempt to try to clean up ourselves before we come to him. And that's a failing mission. That is an exercise in futility. What is more glorious is to be at the very bottom, like sitting in a prison cell in Rikers Island, and say, you know what, I'm fed up, and cry out to God. And if anybody cries out to God from the basement of their soul right where they are, I think God is loving enough, just enough, and kind enough to meet them right where they are. There is no place so dark that God cannot meet a person in that dark space. Where God found me was in a season of suicidal ideation that would not escape me, bro. Right? I wasn't born on the altar. The Lord didn't bring me into the kingdom in a church service. There was no preachers. There was no choir. There was no Bibles. It was a toilet seat and a bathroom and me feeling empty and suicidal. That's where God found me, in the lowest place in my life. You've hit rock bottom where you want to put the bullet to your head. You've hit rock bottom where you have no desire to live. We have no desire to go on the next day. You've hit rock bottom. I'm not talking about losing a job. I'm not talking about, that's not what we talk. We're talking about we have no desire to live. It don't get no lower than that, bro. I had a friend in Bible college who took her life in a car in the parking lot of Kroger. So I know what it is to lose somebody who's suicidal, and I know what it is to be suicidal, right? So it don't get no lower than that when you don't want to live. And it was in the lowest place in my life where I had no desire to live. That's where God found me. So if God could find me in the basement of my soul with no desire to live, certainly he could find anybody, no matter what. As long as you are breathing, there is hope for that person.